King Leopold II was the King of Belgium, but before he was the king, he set his eyes on colonizing an African country to enhance the Belgian rule. Leopold began to gather a group of explorers to help colonize a country. One of the men he chose was Henry Morton Stanley. Leopold scouted the country out by pretending to run a charity that was aimed at humanitarian work in the area around the Congo River. The inhabitants that opposed the colonial rule were taken care of by using violence to scare off the citizens near the Congo River. The beautiful country of Congo was being taken over by the Belgian colonizer and his violent rule. Leopold made those who live in the country harvest ivory and rubber. If someone did not meet the quota for the harvest, Leopold ordered the mutilation of those who harvested the rubber and ivory. One of the most gruesome examples was when Leopold would have the harvesters' hands cut off for not meeting the quota. The rubber and ivory would then be exported to the United States and Europe. Leopold allowed private companies to rule a portion of the land in the Congo as well. The Société Anverso was given a considerable portion of the north half of the Congo, and the Anglo-Belgian India Rubber Company was given a portion of the south and eastern parts of the country as well. Leopold made his own personal plantation in the Free State of Congo. Those who opposed the rule of Leopold were called Congophobes, and one of the leading Congophobes in the United States was Booker T. Washington. But the most prominent voice against the genocide in Congo was E.D. Morel, a clerk in the Liverpool office of a shipping firm. Morel founded the Congo Reform Association, which used newspaper editorials, debates, and meetings to keep the genocide in the public eye. James Cardinal Gibbons was one of Leopold's most loyal American allies, as he lobbied on behalf of King Leopold and his actions in the Congo. Cardinal Gibbons argued that King Leopold was doing great work to civilize the Congolese people, stating that the colonization of the Congo was doing great things to help the citizens. Cardinal Gibbons was not alone in the Catholic Church, as he received complete support from the Vatican and Pope Pius X. In 1908, negotiations finally ended that transferred the Congo to the Belgian state, relinquishing Leopold's rule of the Congo. Nearly 70 years following the Congolese genocide, there was a genocide in Cambodia. Political leader Pol Pot gathered together an army of men named the Khmer Rouge. Invading the country of Cambodia, the Khmer Rouge began expelling Cambodians from urban areas of the country. Taking control of the country, Pol Pot began keeping track of names of enemies he wished to kill following his victory in Cambodia. This list contained political enemies and those who opposed the Khmer Rouge. While the Cambodian government resisted the takeover, resistance was futile, and in April of 1975, Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge had taken over Cambodia. The Khmer Rouge took over the Cambodian capital, Phnom Penh, on April 17, 1975. Pol Pot assumed the position of leader of the country, giving himself the name Brother Number One. The first objective of the Khmer Rouge following takeover was to transform the country into an agrarian society, removing workers from the urban areas of the country and forcing them to work in the fields on the countryside. Pol Pot had a vision that Cambodia was going to be a fully self-sustained country, meaning if the product could not be made in the country or harvested in the country, then it was unavailable. This resulted in the death of many civilians in Cambodia, as they were not used to working in the fields and harvesting. This led to malnutrition and starvation in the country. It is estimated that the decisions made by Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge killed 1.7 million people, a staggering number considering the fact that Cambodia only had 6 million people in 1975. The Khmer Rouge would also execute those who could not harvest the land properly, using pickaxes to carry out the violence. Combined with prisons where they would torture and execute those who opposed the Khmer Rouge rule, Pol Pot is responsible for mass execution in the country. Following the atrocious genocide in Cambodia, the Khmer Rouge and Pol Pot were largely unpunished. Vietnam invaded the country and displaced the Khmer Rouge and Pol Pot from their position in the country in 1979. Hegemonic masculinity is the practice of men forcing their power over women and other men. While this concept may seem to say that only women can be subjected to oppression by men, this is not true. Other men can be subjugated by masculinity as well, as we see in the genocides discussed earlier in this video. The type of masculinity that appears varies based on the culture of the society that it is manifesting in. Hegemonic masculinity not only manifests in men, but also women. The need to subjugate other men and enforce one's power over other men and women is the reasoning behind hegemonic masculinity. One sees this pop up in genocides across the world, people portraying masculine traits and forcing their power and rule over other people. Hegemonic masculinity can be seen in genocides throughout world history. Men enforcing their power over other people, killing, mutilating, torturing, and raping other men and women. This type of masculinity leads to violence and irrational behavior. The need to colonize and enforce one's power over another is also a form of masculinity. The study of gender in regard to genocide is heavily influenced by the Global North and the theories regarding gender that come from the Global North researchers. One must keep in mind the fact that the Global North perspective on masculinity is not the same perspective that the Global South has. While the Global North research states that masculinity and gender are social constructs, the Global South understands that certain cultures have a different view on gender and gender roles. While the Cambodian and Congo genocides devastated the countries at the time, both would relinquish the genocidal rulers and their rule in the country. The Congo would experience a second civil war in the mid-1990s. This civil war was closely related to the genocide in Rwanda, as Hutus fled Rwanda to seek asylum in the Congo. This resulted in Hutu militia setting up bases and attacking Tutsis living in the country. As the country was under siege, rebels began a campaign to unseat President Mobutu Sese Seko. As the AFDLC continued their campaign to remove Mobutu from the presidency, they killed thousands of citizens. As the AFDLC got closer to Mobutu, he fled the country, where he would die in 1997. Laurent Kabila would take over the government in Kinshasa and would name himself president. Kabila renamed the country from Zaire to the Democratic Republic of the Congo. the name the country had prior to Mobutu. Tensions remain high in the Congo to this day. In Cambodia, civil war would ravage the country until 1991. Two of the leaders of the country, Nuon Che and Khieu Samphan, would be convicted of genocide and sentenced to life in prison in November of 2018. This small amount of justice for the killings would come nearly 40 years after the genocide took place. Pol Pot would never face punishment, as he died in 1998 before he could face trial. The citizens of Cambodia still grapple with the aftershock of the violence to this day. While most of the Cambodian citizens are not old enough to have lived through the Khmer Rouge, the group still permeates the political scene in Cambodia. Due to the fear caused by the genocide, citizens are reluctant to speak out against the government now, as they fear if the government was to change, they would return to a country in turmoil. This allows Prime Minister Hun Sen to continue his rule of the country, as he is the longest tenured Prime Minister in the world. Discussions about the Khmer Rouge are limited and will all most likely remain that way until this political generation dies out in Cambodia.